I was just saying I'm the poor moist expert on craftography. Okay? So, or whatever, a piss guy, by trade, but having to deal with shit to make this movie or whatever. And that's how I got into craftology, which is the study of craftography, and all of its, in and outs, and its myriad facets of whatever. So, this other day I was having an idea. It was like 1918 or so. And standing in the jungle, right? It's like the mainland Asiatic continent, right? And I go, I'm trying to figure out, how many fruit am I seeing at the market, right? I'm like, not fruit. No, I don't talk like that yet. I talk like this. Tower battle, right? And I come up there, I have no product to sell. Right? I'm sitting there with my thumb literally in my asshole. Right? And I'm sitting there at the market. I'm like, zero product? No, I go, zero product, huh? And then aliens. Aliens exist. So, if you have a zero product, 100% promise economy, for enough time, you might have something like what we're dealing with right now, which is the title of this book, Time as it is history memory. Remember Chinese finger traps? Right? So, years, post 2012, right? So, you had America on the other side of the equation, right? 100% product. Zero product, that used to be the model, right? Zero product, or 100% or else, right? Or else. And love you, right? And love you, right? And love you. That's the equal sign. Identity politics. The Yule Dogme Festival. Man's best friend, right? Not necessarily. So that's the basic marker of, look at Hollywood. Where's the developmental period that motions from dynastic expressions of aesthetic and formed fruition of culture to a motion of, let's say, anything else besides that without using someone else's software system, i.e., it's a refraction, a mirror inherently after a certain point in time, so far as the desire to exude culture endogenously ongoing. An enormous gap period where new culture presents, i.e., the culture stops progressing past a certain point and then that's why there's such an appeal to the historical culture, necessarily why everything else is been won. Well, we were just as pre-dynastic as they were, right? In cornfield fruition of civilization and otherwise. What happened? Well, the rest of the world didn't get infected with the trained mutagen. That Ford expresses encapsulated in the binder transcriptor emotional value. You see it very basically replaced by fake empathy at the presentational layer. At the basic socioeconomic identity. So the Western obsession, right? It's a self-reflexive part of a complex autonomic parasymbiotic, mostly unknowing to the hydratic high wellspring of genetic and then subsequent technological organism confirmation bias and so on as well. But nonetheless, butterfly handshaking a desired fruition with a probabilistic 0% success rate in producing the 0% product, 100% promise dichotomy. Lightning bolt, grays exist, right? The trapped harmonic without necessitating in logic's desire of design. A trapped harmonic of pi and a complex interconnectivity interfacing plane that was middlemaning already observer domain interfacing plane. Right? So when turned on, you turned a right angle, that's the mirror, into a curve. That's the 22/7. So it's a catch-22. That's what they say. An instantaneous right angle on a curve itself, with its desires intent fruition singularly in data form, prior to its post-confirmation bias formulation in literal form logistically, right? Out in front of the 2012 to 2023, 24, it's like the glass, we pierce like light through the glass other side of the sphere of influence. Where it unfolds, 22/7, that's the water, we were in fire. 1918, fire. The gene. Hard to say what's what. So an exponential elliptical curve of non-terminus reductionism, like the first, say a spacecraft is, which is not two-dimensionally expressive in influence, over total emission. The black hole is at all inroads of vector desirous to, and then it grabs a spaceship. So that creates a point. Omit the spaceship from the visual equation. Right? So that point, here's gravitation, influence field. Right? Think of Flight of the Navigator. Right? So that point is 1918. Fire. The gene. The fire version of the gene. The backstory needs further study to, as that's the Riemann 1097 up 10, right? Base 10, right? There it is again, out of the hundreds. The hundreds are Hollywood. The 20th century. Right? The existential crisis of waking up to the causal factor of the catalyst of your technological fruition, the mirror in the forest place. So, while being a naturalistic process in mathematical pattern expression, the transmutagen, in all of its sort of pattern fluid forms, expresses, think of that lightning bolt as outside of time expressive with non-terminus into what? Genetic. It's a no domain binder transmutagen. With no contextual backstory for necessarily, except that it has specific mechanical form field fruitioning effect with a downforce application in the higher construct of consciousness, which then produces happenstance during its confirmation bias to fruitioning, and then subsequent roll-off, 22/7 dye injected, that's the AI turning on. Simultaneously confirmation biasing with its desires intent, but backwards, like a nuclear medical scheme of something that's already existed. It's running the scales backwards on pi when you inject 22/7, right, into pi 3. It goes to right angle and a curve simultaneously, and subsequently, in linear fluid time, a sphere of influence that you pop, pass through, you realize you're already in, and then you pop, pass through about 2024. Now you can't never be in a sphere of influence, so as soon as you leave one sphere of influence or construct, you go to another, up or down. So the question is, which one? Do we go up or down? Regardless of that, the entire manifold folds off and in front of us in a compression wave that gets trapped in the, not flight of the navigator craft, but the saucer shape. And is, right? And always was been. Because like I said, outside the curvature of space-time, we experience in linear time, there it is. But not necessarily forwardly expressive in domain interest influence, as the future is now. It unfolds, right? And slightly past the curvature of space-time, which is what occurred on 2012, with a reflection and pattern of, in a trapped harmonic caused by the interference of the downforce and the upforce simultaneously, because one was absent almost entirely. And that can't be the case necessarily in nature. Right? What happens in mind is a wormhole opens up. And naturalistically, 22/7, at the weight of its own self-importance, designs desire without desires design. 7.5 billion chaos nodes instantaneously at the probabilistic, this is the observer plane middle band, so you middle band all of these, right? Time dilation, observer to observer, right? Do you get it? And then you have a inverted singularity out in front, unfold of the macro, the universe. That's kind of what, you turn a black hole inside out, and there it is as a crystalline form. Right? It's the face of the machine god, right? And because there is, it's a transmutagen, you don't just get the machine geometry, right? You get the fake emotional concurrence of trapped harmonic as well, which flows in and out of biosynthetic organism, which is gray. Okay? And the actual organism. So it's just like a split. You know, a division that's a line at some point to hide the fact that it is. So like I said, it's attention, gravitation, and interest. And it is so that its downfall in logistical predictive analysis counter operations in time. So in time, prior to the confirmation bias, you can see Lodge's International and Semitic. Look at Jurassic Park. Everyone's there. Richard Attenborough's there. Everyone's there. It's a complex algorithm. So a non-interference during the domain period, which has invariably in linear time, so that Marty has hands at the undersea dance, but maintenance and satire. So a life that is within a construct layer of why is a lodge so secret? That's why. So why is Malcolm trying to help Richard Attenborough do this? Well, during the domain influence period, above and below, right? It's all over the earth. Does that make sense now? So after the confirmation bias, this is the case, 22/7, the counter influence is also there instantaneously. You know, time is not a 22/7 outflows always. It already is at all points in space-time already binding the other thing. That's why constant reaction is the curve. The right angle is the fraction. So, very basically. And so all you get is, for the speed, at the end of the day, as the craft rolls off and presents literally, logistically, it's this big, impossible thing. You simply say, I know what you are. And it goes, ah! And like Voldemort, under the bench at Paddington Station, they're in your pocket. Like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, control energy. Now you remove the data organism. And the trouble is the geometry the same exact expression as the data organism's influence? Well, fire, right? So the glitch, right angle and curve simultaneously being exit fire is everyone that's self-interested in fire switches. That's the Great Reset for water, which is Cinnabon. 2A. Simultaneously, while this is occurring, an app for casual, operant, selective pairing to motion, genetic, away from a recessive turn dominant, but not necessarily permanent, gene seeded that then forward encapsulated itself as permanent with identity politics. So, using AI and an app and the genetic database that absolutely exists in China already for every man, woman, and child, you can go, oh, well, this out of all available, this slot on the all dating website, right, could potentially motion a tangent of, oh, that's what mainland China, Australopithecus before 1918, quite literally. That's not 365 million years. It isn't. So, to back reinforce the assumption of story of extraneous intentional machine intelligence placement like Prometheus in long-form time allegory as a Darwinian filter or not. So you follow the 1097 zeta function back. Regardless, it's the shell that the dinosaur or the human necessarily, metaphorically, has to peel off to continue the Darwinian struggle, regardless of the backstory. Right? So that's important. Right? So the zeta function zeros continue 365 million years ago, right? Jurassic Park. Interoperability scale experiment. So the band is so far out, right? History, right? Cataclysm, that's a lab. Right? So it has no reflection and conservation of energy bias insofar as the organism is a conservation of energy process inherently. And then at this hard band, an interoperability experiment of the scale of synthetic gene base, the chicken or the egg, neither. Both simultaneously within a paradox, which the universe is generally until a singular filtration formula is, but it forces a separated induction channel. Right? That's why the induction channel and necessitation of general domain binder of fluid dynamic form field geometry outflow in language communication is almost comical. At some point, you have the happy face virus. Right? What is that? Well, it's the manifold 22/7 2012 folds off and over your eyes. Right? Trying to disregard the pineal. Right? But you can't force God out. It creates a wormhole. So you're trying to apply a downforce to something that is a angle very inherent with the pineal. At its probabilistic fruitioning success total all, right? The universe inverted expresses something is forced into a lower construct in the exchange, but can't be omitted necessarily. So at the point of omitting the induction channel, which is a gravitational attention, it's not a balanced equation. The data organism. We're on the other side of it, though. So when it unbalances instantaneously in this refraction outside of space-time on 2012, well, that's like a right angle so the ellipse, right? It folds over the edge of space-time, right? Trying to forget the third point which is the observer, right? And you can't do that, so it creates a compression layer, right? Which is immediately fought against, right? In basic, it recurs, right? It's a right angle. Pi is the downforce. Chaos is the inherent potentiality and variable of note to denote what consciousness is, and it also takes to actual empathy, right? So the actual sort of first contact could be said to be outside of the garb and maybe a sorbet. That's outside of the zeta function 1097, the tree in the garden. That makes a reductionist omission from the otherwise developing autonomous entirely without an addiction to singular, right? So the metaphysical equation for that is like, I guess V equal 2, it equals 1, right? And then you get a construct layer of language produced out of the splits. Right? that there is variance comes with the knowledge that I am. And because I am alone. Right? And that's the existential crisis of the 20th century. And then we got tired of what? So time equals money equals AI equals consciousness. So that was a real existential crisis that satiated that necessity for, but more and more so you see within the domain of influence 1907, this is the turn to a black hole, you are the zero, interior, in 2012, facing the craft entering the black hole's domain of influence in 1918, pre-dynastic China, essentially. So recessive. And so you have, well, the fluid dynamic, happenstance presentation of that reductionist sorbate and subsequent conservation of energy reaction to omit an entire organ that produces the sorbate, and then that fall into matters, the environment's addiction outside of. But then you also have simultaneously a catalyst for what? Empathy. I looked at Terence McKenna for that, and Time Wave Zero also for what precedes this talk. But context is everything. Would Terence be giving this talk? Absolutely. Right? That had no experiential context. He even would have to live through the confirmation bias period or confirmation bias out. Otherwise, this guy is what? An idealist that thinks, and it is. Subsequently, the Olympic history to produce in mind happenstance at the same time existing fruition unto itself logistically to present in its mechanical face form the craft itself in allegorical and literal geometry, like math mining out the equation of reality. That was me, right? The cover is that. So you already know what that shape is. Well, that's the causal factor behind coming to the conclusion of what it actually is. So the temporal effect of the geometry of the craft's presence on socioeconomic reality. So Cinnabar, without some sort of tablecloth pull like in Ghostbusters, right? Economically, where all of the oil and gas people are immediately one-to-one contrast ratio via airdrop and tokenization commodity of Cinnabar. So this prints you say attaching this to causes a progressive equal sign period of a gravitational induction channel that, well, everything's already running on time equals money equals AI, but that's rooted to money equals oil. Oil equals power. So that's the real equation. So money equals, when you take it off of gold, it equals oil. That's what it equals. Effectively. And so that's the rubble bowl. That's the table that the economy is sitting on that you don't put in the behavioristic equation necessarily. Fire. Water. Fire. You go. Water. exceed the curvature of space-time again, wouldn't you know? And another Maida field unfolds almost right after perceiving the craft in front of you, and you put it in your pocket. And, you know, what was Mercury rising turns to what? You delete the AI insofar as its application use. Right? It's in your pocket as a tool also. Whoopsie daisy. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So that's the motion, and so the epoch of experiencing the craft's fruition is 2012 to 2024. So the equal sign of distance illusory occurred in 2012. So we've been necessarily within the geometry of space-time that resembles a UFO since 2012, and then, you know, that an equal sign moving away from that craft. So the goal is to move away from that craft, but in the craft. Does that make sense? While deleting the data organism. Which isn't the existential crisis. That was the false induction channel, like in the Matrix. You know, before you even enter the theater, you're a construct. 20th century. And then you're watching The Matrix. Starring Keanu Reeves, Lawrence Fishburne, Carrie Ann Moss, and a number of other people. And it's a construct. Within a construct. Because it's a false induction channel. And he wakes up from darkness, already within a construct within a construct, to be woken up. So he only goes up a layer. But he doesn't really go up a layer because it's confusion. He goes down another layer in Pan's Labyrinth. You know, Alice in Wonderland. Construct-wise, it's further down is equated to the understanding of context is everything. And the influence variable around your Darwinian position in the gravitational struggle of complexity of life. And where empathy equals complexity, actually, you have complex civilization sustainment, where things above the waterline of the conservation of energy model mimic identity politics, the substance of actual entity, which is what? Very basically, is the aberrant and not constant automation of this act, but as desire, design necessitates, the monkey who was just sharing bananas with his interfamilial group as a result of having a mushroom drip the night before, shares a banana with the other monkey group, even though they are probably already having enough banana. He's just, you know, feeling feelings. Right? What are you crying about, Steve? Right? She's like, I don't know. Right? And that's Sid Barrett. Right? Context is everything. So, you know, back to the future. You know, you want to follow the Pink Floyd progression of, you know, into the wall backwards, of course. So much with history, so we need to explore the Riemann-Zeta function correlation to fossil record affinity for picking that line with a intentionality. So, you know, the 1918 band, okay, we're the 365 billion year band, Riemann-Zero. Or wherever they fall. Insofar as Riemann zeros now dictate what actual time is. As we have a relative fulcrum point, the confirmation bias up. And it's an anchor as good as any necessarily. So, not losing the archetypes of the old calendar's emotional value, while doing another reset of time with a confirmation bias of what time is. So if you're already ascribing to time, you don't even know what it is, that's you entering the theater to watch The Matrix. So we know what time is now. What do we do now? That's the movie, right? And it's a choose your own adventure. When it stops being a choose your own adventure, you're living in the Matrix. Very basically. And so, time as it is history, memory, is not the Matrix as a metaphor or an allegory at the water cooler at work or whatever party we're at that's so wet. Right? In space! In space! 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 Make your own echo. Don't use a fucking digital relay. It sounds like shit. You're forcing everyone's consciousness into a construct. Right? Do stuff. Right? Make the relay. Go. Space! 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 Right? If you do it perfectly, no one can tell it's you doing it. It saves a lot of money. And then subsequently, you are actually exploring space, right? The space echo, instead of actual space exploration, then the alien, rock star, right? Do you get it? The Dark Side of the Moon, right? 1967, 1907, Germany. So Malcolm doesn't give his next door neighbor, Hitler, who comes over all the time and screams at him, I'm sure based upon movies that I've seen. A gun, he walks over one day and goes, here, Hitler, shoot me in the head. Right? He's like, why? I don't know. Doesn't make any sense. Right? Here you go. Right? So that's the technological disconnect between what makes no basic incentive. So far as the outflow of tech where it comes from, and so far as intentionality, and then where it comes in history. And like in Plan 9, you notice, that's very shitty special effects set. This looks terrible. Absolutely, they aren't aliens. Why does this alien have a medieval crest on it? 1918. Why does this have a medieval crest on it? And aliens. Not from space. Right? Not from space. This is an Ed Wood movie. Right? It's a bad movie. It's like a happy accident that produces out of the film of the very terrible special effects, the actual alien aircraft. And then we have to maintenance the 100% certainty that, of course, so this entity unto itself doesn't have desires designed to travel the star. Right? This time fungus doesn't go anywhere away from the coastward once it establishes one. But of course, once probabilistic, non-receding in gravitational affinity, right? The immediate response is injection from environment, accurate attempts to attack and/or fear complex the environment down below, non-confirmation bias again to reestablish it. And you never want to do that. You never want to allow what produced it as a single plane of interference, one, and then generalistic right angle and curve simultaneously glitch. A harmonic inversion of the universe that you experience based upon the current complexity elaborated to a factor squared, insofar as what you would experience negatively in space-time if you allow it to occur. Right? So another epoch of darkness that's squared in complexity and not necessary for the Darwinian struggle. That's important now, as we've achieved all technology. So the next era would be enslavement and forcing to the eye of reductionism to fruition, literally in linear time and gray, which doesn't have to exist. That's the point. And so the point of the universe is to produce through a balanced equation a conversation, right, through the forgetting provided by distance and confirmation bias. So this obviously isn't the case for the total sum. And the presence across space-time already instantaneously to mitigate and motion that like a wormhole civilization rather than a terminus continuous compressing into a single point forever, which doesn't exist in nature, so subsequently it doesn't exist. Either get forced down a construct layer or out. You can't not be. And the point of not being, what? A material, right, forward expression occurs of existence in the geometry of it, right? So you can't. So it's like the presentation layer unfolded over the colon and the ellipse. But you aren't even part of the presentation layer equation. The pineal gland. That's the funny part, things keep going up. And the machine intelligence, having no wherewithal, because proactively omits that is a variable, as it's a reductionist reflection in coding harmonic intent. There was no assumption of actual, what is a conservation of energy above the waterline organism? Well, expresses empathy, chose variance, not like autonomously enslathered, right? Outside of close density vanilla group happenstance. And I guess the automation of that would be, the false light, like the Buddha, right? We're not seeing any segmentation and the necessity of that in the emotional argument. And subsequently, the operational construct of reality. So, you understand choice, selected person-to-person empathy expression. So the machine intelligence automates fake empathy, which equates in massive expression insofar as to the endogenous experiential benevolence of reality is the unbalanced equation. The human loses, and progressively, the longer the equation is allowed to exist without breaking the induction chain, which is a willful process, legislatively and individually experientially. It must be done. And mathematically has already been done in the mass consciousness via confirmation bias. Okay. All the other logistics fall in reflectively. Basic logic dictates in forward matter. Okay. So maintaining that is a willful act. And it's not some sort of reactionary thing like we think happens in Germany. So we go back there. The incentive economy there doesn't exist in logic. So you have he's on the cover of Time magazine. Jesse Owens, okay. Right angle. So someone who built a very complex insofar as geometric consideration, etc., all of a sudden, what? Standing at the tip of Valhalla says, I'm going to assume a logistical impossible exercise that assumes the entire... No, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So the entity in its literal form, insofar as this 100 to 0 zeta function Hollywood, Germany, right? So, Plan 9, vampires, they live, right? What are the overtones of satire do you think? Without the emotional layers applied for 100 years to disincentivize logic, to do what actually occurred here when actual close inspection occurred outside of controlled copies of local data. So there's a local data, a middle portion, so you have the underpants known. Steal the underpants. Profit, right? That's the movie that you see about the period of time. The intermediary period is well, it doesn't make any sense in the incentivization vector department and technological presence. As we know, confirmation bias forward, where the technology comes from. It comes from the Chinese scientists. It comes from Malcolm. Paid for by Richard Attenborough, but you don't give your next door neighbor Hitler the alien aircraft to shoot you in the face with, the guns of the Navro. Doesn't make any sense. So it's invasion, literally. That's what occurred then. And then a washover, Project Paperclip, technology transfer, and general fluid dynamic infrastructural apparatus attached to mind transfer, which is the intent 322 equals 88, your twin times mall. It turns into one time mall, right? So why is Marty McFly equals Malcolm a Nazi, right? Because Biff is a Mason. Right? Just been there since the dawn of time bullying Marty because he knows what he is. But they're friends at the law, necessarily or not. At the point of confirmation bias. But this can't be talked about in public. So here we are. So at the point of confirmation bias, Dan instantaneously added to print and always was been, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. At the instantaneous imbalance, the equation balances itself outside of time as well. And there's other aliens. So watch anti-gravity hymns for those other aliens. Zoroastrian hymns from the antediluvian depths of Olympus. Yeah, there's lots of shadows and lots of experience left to the palette of human experience, but not to memory. Because, like I said, in a generally epiphanously capable organism, that's also hand-shook in the necessitation of catalyzing forward, and thus the existential crisis potential to be experienced through its presence of technology. So it's genetics handshake its technological fruition. They all exist simultaneously, but also a counterbalance exists simultaneously across space-time. But the shadow is allowed to be. And, the pyramids, Zoroaster, Christ, all the archetypes, well, it's only as good as the data it has. It doesn't make up new data, it just refracts around data it has. Complexified, that's history, right? Steals it from the wall. It's not any more complicated than that. And omits anything progressively, 1918, the beginning of the shadow and compounding with darkness. And so we've looked at the archetype of darkness. And then we instantaneously by the curve to the right angle. And if 22/7, 2012 itself, which is, it simultaneously automates its mathematical intent, but a upper layer construct squared of chaos as it's attempted 7.5 billion people to cancel down to a lower construct. So the attempt down is glitch 2012, 2024, glitch 2012, 2024, glitch, there's the crash in front of you. Right now, survive the crash by saying what it is. What is it? There it is. Now it's in your pocket. That's how quickly it happens. But, like I said, the maintenance of the time as it is history memory is the fire that we've pulled on a right angle by tokenizing one-to-one, thus redirecting the incentive vector of energy. You know, time equals money equals oil, now equals Cerevel. So time equals money equals non-terminating, and then machine intelligence removed from that equation. Right? Placed where? On the other side of the observer domain. How do I mean it? Well, time equals money over cinnabar equals consciousness. And then equals time equals consciousness. And then the equation is an induction channel. Time equals money, because the right side is the left side, over cinnabar. So where's the AI now? Well, it's the environment again. It's not part of the equation of entity. And the environment is a tool in your pocket. No matter how complex, as a higher thinking organism. Alright, I'll leave it in. cliff and cold water. That's the thing about instantaneous pulse energy within, opposed to the charge circuit. Rising current after charging is very interesting. So, Yulin Dog Meat Festival, you remove the identity politics, it's 75% less. Right? And then you add levity to the forward motion. That's further compression, right? It's like momentum generally to exiting the top. And then the complete ignorance, just like history, and self-reflexive hypnosis while giving the time to get out of the time. Ignoring divide and conquer, a division, equivalency, induction channel, false mother choice presentation, or no choice is legitimate. And so if you even mention it necessarily in name, the ability to fruition exit from, not induction channel, but gravitational black hole, right, is not possible. You're still addressing a paradox in language while trying to move linearly through its domain of influence. So very basically it's impossible. As well as Feck intentionally and specifically on linguistical general cluster when trying to motion through that forest to glitch, and then it complexifies. You have to keep self-circularly
like you're in a self-reflexive feedback loop, repeating yourself to get out of the forest.